Hey Tyler, so I thought I would start with the show you the board and kind of explain some different parts of the board. Some of this you'll get from the rule book, um, but I thought I would just kind of give you a little more detail so you kind of know what you're looking at here. Over here is there's a track, um, and you're going to be moving things up and down it. If you notice, like culture starts out at 9, and your military starts out at 5, and then the enemy morale and the ferocity is at 5 and 4. And then you have these things called action points, very important. And right now they start the game at 3, and then these MPs are movement points. And then there's a whole bunch of um, enemy action points over here. Some people like to stack them down here when they use them and then kind of spend them that way. I prefer to put them here and just kind of tick up. And then they have a +10 on the backside, and then there's another one that I tucked up here that's a +20. I put counters that are not being in use up here, except for the fact that I stick the drought counters up here as a way to kind of keep them out of the way. Some of these counters come into the game later if you get certain cards, like if you any of these cards up here, and you bring those into the game, and that's part of the rules on passage of time. And then, but you have to play cards to get those in. Down here is your out of play box. These are out of play, but they can enter play a lot easier. So there's sheep and horses. This guy comes in later in the game. He is was a chief, I believe. And anyway, explains in the rule book, but he helps you. These are the different family units. These are men, women, children, elders. I have some harass counters, some trade good counters, and firearms that are all out of play. Down here, you'll notice these are your family boxes, and the idea is that you are trying to protect your families and increase the Navajo Nation while also keeping your military and cultural points above 0. If ever you get to 0, you lose the game. So the enemy is going to be trying to put outposts out to suppress you, to convert you to Christianity, to attack you, and some of that's based on what you're going to do, and some of it's based on what they're going to do. This is kind of the first game. There's two First Nations game. The other one's called Comancheria, which I honestly like a little bit better, but that one is very expensive right now and out of print, and will come back, but it's a great game. And if you really end up liking this one, I would recommend I'd keep an eye out for it because it's awesome. But this one, you do affect the enemy when you raid them all the way over there, but for the most part, they're going to kind of come at you, and you're just going to try and survive. So you're not going to really have a lot of. This is a much more defensive game. Navajo Nation, the Dine, I believe they pronounced it. I could be wrong on that. Are very defensive in the game and in life. And this game represents the time period of 1598 to 1864. So it takes you to the Spanish, the Mexicans, the Americans, kind of going after the Dine. So it's much more defensive. The Utes and the Comanches also raid as well. So anyway, you're trying to build up these families down here, and then add more families later in the game. Up here is an elder display track that comes in later in the game, and I'll show you how that kind of operates. Up here are different territories. If you notice, they have die number 3, 1, 2, 5, or 4, 5, and these are different areas on the map. This one here in the middle is Canyon de Shelley. It's a kind of a special area. It's a protected area that the Navajo would use whenever they were being attacked. It was very difficult to attack that section, and very easily defensible, and only Kit Carson kind of came through and destroyed it. It also had a lot of peach trees in it that they were able to survive off of, and he ended up cutting them all down, and it was quite the tragedy for the Navajo. Then here are drought sections. This right now shows that things are pretty green still, but later in games you'll get these drought tokens, and they get added to the board and to have negative effects on the different territories. So 7 territories in the map, but 6 of which the enemy can kind of go into. They can go into Canyon de Shelley, but they'll only go in there if there's no other units on the map for them to go to. Um, these escape and caught boxes come into play later, and you'll just kind of have to go through the procedural rules when that should happen. As I hopefully won't happen for me. Um, anyway, let's see. So there's this part. You have your men, women, and children for a tribe. They're represented by the tokens out here. So you have like C matches up with C. And then this number here, this is a ferocity level. This is, matches the family. And then this, oh shoot, I forgot what the 2 means. I think it's an escape level, but I could be wrong. And then this is like a -1 ferocity. There it goes up to +2. There's other counters that I kind of tuck down here that like this shows like they're more ferocious, and this is a little more ferocious. And that has a negative consequence when the enemy decides to raid you and attack you. If you've been ferocious, they're going to bring more guys. But you also kind of need to be ferocious sometimes, and it helps you if you attack. Or if you're being attacked, if you have a ferocity level of like +2, that's a modifier for your die roll. There's a couple other little things over here that I kind of tucked down here. This is like family actions remaining. If ever I step away from the board, like mid-turn, I tend to kind of just stick this like up. I have 1 family left. And how I do it is I just go in order, A, B, C, D, E. And so if I know if I have like 1 left, it's the last one to act. So if I had like A, B, and C, I knew that I hadn't acted with C yet. If I did this, I knew that I did with A. If I was like all 3, I knew that I still needed to do stuff with them. This is enemy battle DRM is dice roll modifier, and this is the Dene battle DRM. I don't really use these much, but they're useful if you kind of need them to remind you like what each guy has. And that gets explained in the rules. All right, over here, this is the really neat thing about the game. This is a track this is how the enemy operates. And if you notice, there's this die roll here. And as they do things, as they get action points, which you'll see when I actually start playing through, they start to do the things listed on here. And those like subjugate and build and subvert and raid. And so they do those things as you do things to them and the game progresses. And then they kind of slide over and then they rotate back up. And so they do them all over again. And you roll a die before every time they go. You actually roll 2 of them. And it flips those counters if they're not with the red bar. The red bar don't flip. So like if I rolled a 3 and a 4, I would actually flip these to the other side. So instead of building, now they would do colonize. And instead of subvert, they would do raid. And so you can plan, be like, oh, they're going to build. I really need to get out of the way of their mission that they're going to be building. So I need to move this guy. But they might switch and do something else, and you weren't expecting that. So, and if you ever roll doubles, then these switch. So like if I roll double 2, this goes to out of basically standby, and then this pops into its spot. And that can really mess with you too. It can really have some drastic effects. So you can plan for what the enemy's going to do. You can look ahead, but at the same time, like they move, they do different things. Up here, there's cubes that you're going to place in different spots. You'll see it kind of when we play through. And then here is the out of play enemy tokens. The setup has you, if you just follow the setup rules, it has you remove like 2 random ones. And lucky for me, I removed Comanche. That's a tough one. Peace, that was helpful, but and then like slaves, they take your guys and then build. So I was able to remove those just by random luck, and that was that. Up here are different culture development cards. You start with 1 of them. I ended up losing, there's horsemanship, which I was sad to lose. You pick 1, and I picked religion, 1 set, and then you shuffle the others, and you remove 2 of them from the game. So I ended up losing one of the ones I really like, which is horsemanship. But I got religion, and basically if a player has 1 or more culture points, I gain a +1 culture during step 1D of Passage of Time, which is an action that you'll probably see as I play through. And the culture is here. So this can go up to above 10, but it can never go past 19. So culture is very useful, and just the building up of it helps me purchase more cards later in the game that can help me with my with the Dene. So that's kind of the idea. You move. Oh, these numbers on the board here are like the different movement points it takes. When you don't have horses, this 3 is the one you pay attention to, and doing things like um, growing corn, and you pay attention to these numbers. These parentheses are for movement with a horse, or for finding water with a horse. And he made a point when you play, you'll start to notice like, wait, why is it harder to find water with a horse? Because you actually use the lower number than it is without. And it's like, well, it's really rocky area and it's tough to bring a horse up there, is his argument in the game, the designer. So the horses for the most part help you, but in that one aspect, they kind of hurt you. So the game starts, and this is kind of the setup. You don't have to put them all in the exact spots where I did. You just have to put them in this section, and Canyon Day Shelley. I put this guy here because what I like to do early in the game is raid Santa Fe, but I don't want to be in that one spot in case they build a mission. That's not good for my guys. And then I like this spot because it's a little far away, but it also helps me to be able to grow corn. And then this guy, he's eventually going to come over in here because it earns me more victory points. Although the first one you only need 8, so I might kind of go into Hopi land. So it kind of, you end up getting different points. Victory points are as if you have a guy, a tribe in the territory at the end of a certain card coming. So right now I have 3, and I have 4 victory points for Shiprock because I have family there, and 3 in San Juan Valley. And I can tell you right now that the first victory condition needs 8. So some point I need to get him out either to over here, and any one of these is going to get me that 8 to move on, or to be useful. I guess if you don't get the victory points, bad things happen. You have to do what's called good medicine, and it hurts in the long run. So important to hit those marks. All right, so I think I'm going to stop. Let me think about if there's anything I want to explain to you before I stop this part of the video. I would still recommend reading the rule book, but it's very procedural. A lot of it you'll just kind of have to go through as you play and be like, all right, what do? I do this step and then this step. So some of it you'll see as we play what we're doing here. So I haven't played in a while. I played just one kind of quick set to start, just to kind of remind myself of some of the rules. So anyway, all right.